The silent cry, the Great Assembly Hall of Harmony Prime, stretched across 3 kilometers of polished crystal floors, its transparent walls offering a breathtaking view of the spiral galaxy beyond. Thousands of beings from across the celestial Federation had gathered in this sacred space, their varied forms creating a tapestry of colors and shapes that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. Today, however, the atmosphere was heavy with despair. Ambassador Thielen of the Zinari stood at the center podium, his crystalline body flickering with the pale blue light that indicated extreme distress among his people. The delicate being, no taller than a human child, possessed a translucent quality that made him appear almost ghost-like under the assembly's soft illumination. His species had evolved on worlds where violence was unknown, where the greatest threat came from seasonal storms that could be predicted centuries in advance. Honored delegates, Thielen's voice resonated through the hall's acoustic systems, translated instantly into the hundreds of languages represented in the assembly. The Krolex Empire has struck again. The garden world of Velthara is no more. His voice cracked with emotion as holographic displays showed the aftermath of the attack. What had once been a paradise world covered in floating cities and crystalline spires was now nothing but molten rock and radioactive ash. Director Nalath, the Federation's defense coordinator, rose from her position among the council of leaders. Her species, the Floranis, resembled massive flowering plants, with petals that changed color based on emotional state. Currently, her petals had shifted to deep purple, the color of mourning. Her root-like feet made soft scratching sounds against the crystal floor as she approached the display. 17 worlds in 30 rotations, Nalath announced, her voice carrying the weight of command despite her grief. The Krolex show no interest in conquest, no desire for resources or territory. They arrive, they destroy everything capable of supporting life, and they leave. We have lost over 8 billion souls to their madness. The assembly erupted in a chorus of distressed sounds. The Aquinas delegates released streams of bioluminescent fluid into their water-filled observation chambers, creating swirling patterns of blue and green that spoke of deep sorrow. The ethereal beings, creatures of pure energy contained within geometric force fields, pulsed with erratic light patterns that hurt to look at directly. Even the plant-like Verdani swayed as if struck by hurricane winds, their leaf-covered bodies rustling with a sound like rainfall. 3 months earlier, the first Krolex ships had appeared at the edge of Federation space. Initial contact attempts were met with silence, followed by systematic destruction of everything in their path. The Krolex themselves remained a mystery, as no Federation ship that encountered them had survived to provide detailed intelligence. All that was known came from long-range sensor readings and the final transmissions of dying worlds. Director Nalath activated the tactical display, showing the Krolex advance across Federation territory. Their ships moved in perfect formation, each vessel a dark, angular mass that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The few images captured showed technology that was advanced, but not impossibly so. What made them unstoppable was not superior technology, but their complete commitment to destruction and the Federation's inability to respond with equivalent force. Our defense fleets have engaged them 7 times, Commander Keth of the Stellar Guard reported, his insectoid form clicking nervously as he spoke. Each engagement results in the same outcome. They attack without warning, ignore all attempts at communication, and fight until every ship is destroyed or disabled. They take no prisoners. They offer no terms. They simply kill everything in their path. The mathematics of the situation were terrifyingly simple. At their current rate of advance, the Kroleks would reach the core worlds of the Federation within 6 months. Evacuation was impossible on the scale required, and every attempt at military resistance had failed catastrophically. The peaceful species of the Federation had built their civilization on cooperation and mutual aid. The concept of total war was as alien to them as breathing water was to air-breathing species. Ambassador Thylan's crystalline form pulsed with desperate energy as he addressed the assembly once more. There is one option that remains to us. Deep in our archives, from the earliest days of the Federation, exists an ancient protocol, a beacon designed to call for aid from across the galaxy, reaching species beyond our normal contact range. The hall fell silent. Many delegates had never heard of such a protocol. It dated back nearly 1,000 years, to the chaotic period when the Federation was first forming and contact between distant species was rare and dangerous. The beacon had been designed as a last resort, a way to call for help when all other options had been exhausted. We would be asking for aid from complete unknowns, Nalath warned, her petals shifting to a worried yellow. We have no way of knowing who or what might respond to such a call. The outer spiral arms remain largely unexplored. Our long-range sensors detect industrial activity, but we know nothing of the species responsible. The debate that followed revealed the depth of the Federation's desperation. Some delegates argued for immediate evacuation of the core worlds, abandoning entire sectors to preserve what lives they could. Others insisted on continuing diplomatic efforts with the Kroleks, believing that some form of communication must be possible. A few radical voices suggested attempting to build weapons of mass destruction, though none of their species had any experience with such technology. Hours passed as the assembly struggled with an impossible decision. The Kroleks' advance continued, relentlessly while the Federation's leaders debated. Finally, as the artificial day cycle of Harmony Prime began to fade, Director Naloth called for silence. "My friends," she said, her voice carrying across the vast chamber, "we face extinction. Our greatest philosophers speak of the value of all life, of the beauty of diversity, of the importance of peaceful coexistence. If we do nothing, all of that ends with us. If we activate the beacon, we might find allies, or we might invite something worse than the Kroleks into our space." The vote was closer than anyone expected. Many delegates feared the unknown more than they feared the Kroleks. But in the end, the mathematics of extinction won over the fear of the unknown. The ancient beacon was activated for the first time in nearly a millennium. Deep beneath Harmony Prime, massive transmitters that had slept for centuries came to life. The distress call, encoded with mathematical proofs and desperate pleas for aid, shot out across the galaxy toward the distant spiral arms. The message would take weeks to reach its destination, and even longer for any response to arrive. As the delegates dispersed to their home worlds, none of them knew that their call for help was racing toward a small blue world, where a species called humanity had just begun to explore the space between stars. Far across the galaxy, the exploration vessel Terra's Edge drifted silently through the void between solar systems. The ship was a testament to human engineering. Its hull, a mixture of titanium steel composite and ceramic armor plating that could withstand the harshest conditions of deep space. Scorch marks and micrometeorite impacts told the story of 3 years spent pushing the boundaries of known space. Captain Alina Rodriguez stood on the bridge, her dark eyes scanning the starfield displayed on the main screen. At 30, she was young for a starship captain, But the exploration cause had a way of accelerating careers for those brave enough to venture into the unknown. Her crew of 47 represented humanity's best and brightest. Volunteers who had left behind everything they knew for the chance to see what lay beyond the edge of human space. "Anything interesting on the scopes, Lieutenant?" Rodriguez asked. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Jake Morrison. The young man had served with distinction in the Colonial Defense Force before volunteering for deep space exploration. "Nothing but empty space," Captain Morrison replied, his fingers dancing across his console. "Though I'm picking up some unusual radiation signatures from the Tau Centauri direction. Could be a previously unknown stellar phenomenon." Dr. Marcus Chen, the ship's xenobiologist and first contact specialist, looked up from his research station with interest. Any chance it could be artificial in origin? The question was mostly theoretical, as humanity had yet to encounter any signs of alien intelligence. Despite decades of searching, Morrison was about to respond when every alarm on the bridge began screaming simultaneously. Red warning lights bathed the command center in an angry glow as the ship's communication array overloaded with an incoming signal unlike anything they had ever encountered. "What in the hell is that?" Rodriguez shouted over the noise, her military training taking over as she assessed the crisis. The main screen filled with cascading symbols and mathematical equations that seemed to shift and change even as they watched. The transmission wasn't using any human communication protocol, but the underlying structure was unmistakably artificial. Someone or something was trying to communicate with them. Dr. Chen's excitement was palpable as he worked to decode the signal. "Captain, this is incredible. The sender is using mathematical constants as a universal language. Pi, prime numbers, the golden ratio. This is definitely artificial intelligence." At work, the next few minutes felt like hours as Chen worked to translate the alien message. When the symbols finally resolved into readable text, the bridge fell silent. The message was a distress call, unlike anything humanity had ever imagined. To any species capable of military intervention, Rodriguez read aloud, "We are the Celestial Federation, representing 43 peaceful civilizations. We face extinction at the hands of the Krolex Empire. Billions are dead. Our defense forces cannot match their military capability. We request immediate assistance." The implications hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. Humanity's first contact with alien intelligence wasn't the peaceful meeting of equals that scientists had always imagined. Instead, they had received a desperate cry for help from an entire galactic civilization facing annihilation. Lieutenant Morrison studied the tactical data included with the message, his face growing grim. "Captain, based on their battle reports, these Federation species are completely unprepared for serious military conflict. Their weapons are designed for crowd control and their ships for rescue operations. This Krolex Empire is slaughtering them." Dr. Chen was practically vibrating with excitement as he continued to decode the attached files. "Captain, you need to see this biological data. These Federation species evolved on worlds with lower gravity and more stable climates than Earth. They've never faced the kind of environmental pressures that shaped human evolution." Rodriguez felt the weight of decision settling on her shoulders. The alien coordinates were 4 months away at maximum burn. By the time they could reach Earth and return with reinforcements, the Federation might be extinct. But Terra's Edge was an exploration vessel, equipped with defensive weapons, but hardly a warship. "Dr. Chen," she said finally, "send a response. Tell them help is coming." As her crew prepared for the longest journey of their lives, None of them realized they were about to introduce the galaxy to a species forged by a world so harsh that other civilizations would classify it as uninhabitable. The Federation had called for aid, expecting perhaps to find allies similar to themselves. Instead, they had reached out to apex predators from a deft world, beings who had learned to survive by becoming the most dangerous species their planet had ever produced. Asterisk. When predators answer the call for months after receiving the Federation's distress call, the Terra's Edge dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of what had once been the Velthora system. Captain Rodriguez stood on her bridge, staring at the tactical display that showed nothing but cooling debris where a thriving civilization had existed just months before. The readings were consistent with the use of planetary bombardment weapons, technology that existed in human arsenals but had never been used on inhabited worlds. "Jesus Christ," Lieutenant Morrison whispered, his face pale as he processed the sensor data. "They glassed the entire planet. There's nothing left but radioactive slag." Dr. Chen worked frantically at his station, trying to locate any survivors or escape pods. "I'm detecting some life signs in the outer asteroid belt. Looks like a few. Ships managed to escape before the bombardment began." Rodriguez made her decision quickly, set course for those life signs, and Morrison prepped the medical bay. If there are survivors, they're going to need help. The first Federation ship they encountered was barely functional, its crystalline hull cracked and venting atmosphere. The being who answered their hail was unlike anything humanity had ever imagined. Ambassador Thielen appeared on their main screen, his translucent form flickering with the pale light that indicated critical injuries among his people. "Unknown vessel," Thielen's voice came through the translation matrix Dr. Chen had hastily configured. "Please identify yourself. We are refugees from Velthera. Our world is gone." Rodriguez stepped forward, knowing that her next words would echo through history. "Ambassador, I am Captain Elena Rodriguez of the human vessel Terra's Edge. We received your distress call 4 months ago. We're here to help." The silence that followed stretched for nearly a minute. When Thielen finally spoke, his voice carried a mixture of hope and disbelief. You came. After all this time, someone actually came." The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity as the Terra's Edge took aboard over 300 Federation refugees. Dr. Chen worked alongside Federation medical personnel, learning about alien physiology while treating injuries sustained. During the evacuation, what he discovered sent shockwaves through the human crew. Captain Chen reported privately, "These beings are incredibly fragile by our standards. Their bone density is roughly half that of humans. Their cardiovascular systems are designed for much lower stress environments. Most importantly, they have no natural immunity to the kinds of pathogens that are common on high-stress worlds like Earth." The implications were staggering. The Federation species had evolved on worlds that were essentially paradise by human standards. They had never faced the evolutionary pressures that had forged humanity into a species capable of surviving almost anything. Where humans saw a challenging environment, these beings would see certain death. Ambassador Thielen, now recovering in the Terra's Edge medical bay, provided Rodriguez with detailed intelligence about the Krolax threat. The enemy fleet consisted of approximately 200 vessels, each one heavily armed and shielded. They moved in perfect coordination, striking without warning and leaving no survivors. "They don't communicate," Thielen explained, his crystalline form pulsing with distress. "We've tried every form of contact known to Federation science. They simply arrive, destroy everything, and move on to the next target. Rodriguez studied the tactical data with Morrison and her senior staff. The Krolex ships were individually more powerful than anything in the human fleet, but their tactics were predictable. They relied on overwhelming firepower and the assumption that their enemies would break and run when faced with superior force. Against the peaceful Federation species, this strategy had proven unstoppably effective. They've never faced determined resistance, Morrison observed, highlighting patterns in the Krolex battle reports. Look at these engagement records. The moment Federation ships take significant damage, they withdraw. The Krolex have never had to deal with enemies who fight back with everything they have. Dr. Chen had been analyzing Federation technology and found it surprisingly advanced in many areas. Their shields were more efficient than human designs, their engines cleaner and more reliable, but their weapons were designed for stunning rather than killing. Their armor built to protect against accidents rather than deliberate attacks. Captain Chen reported, "It's like they've never had to seriously hurt anyone." Their entire technological development focused on cooperation and mutual aid. The concept of total war is completely foreign to them. Rodriguez felt a cold smile cross her face. Humanity had no such limitations. Earth had taught its children to fight or die, to adapt or become extinct. Every human who reached adulthood had survived a world that regularly tried to kill them through disease, natural disaster, predation, and resource scarcity. The Federation species were about to learn what happened when you called for help from apex predators. 3 days later, the first Krolex scouts arrived in the Velthora system. Rodriguez watched their approach on the tactical display, noting their confident formation and leisurely pace. They expected to find nothing but debris and perhaps a few helpless refugees to eliminate. "All stations, battle alert," Rodriguez commanded. "Morrison, are the weapons charged?" "Aye, Captain." "All systems green." The Terra's Edge was not a warship, but 3 years in deep space had taught Rodriguez's crew to be prepared for anything. They had upgraded their shields with Federation technology and reconfigured their mining lasers for combat use. More importantly, they had something the Krolex had never encountered, the willingness to fight to the death rather than surrender. The first Krolex ship to enter weapon range was a sleek Predator-class vessel, its dark hull absorbing sensor sweeps and defensive scans. It approached the Terra's Edge with the confidence of a predator that had never met serious resistance. "They're powering weapons," Morrison reported. "Same pattern as in the Federation records. They'll demand surrender, then open fire regardless of our response." "Not today," Rodriguez said grimly. "All hands, this is the captain. We didn't come for months across the galaxy to watch these bastards murder innocent people. Today we show them what happens when you threaten species under human protection." The Krolex ship opened fire without warning, sending cascades of energy that would have vaporized any Federation vessel. But the Terra's Edge had been built to survive in environments where a hull breach meant certain death. The modified shields held, and Rodriguez struck back with everything she had. The human response was unlike anything the Krolex had encountered, where Federation ships would have tried to withdraw or negotiate. The Terra's Edge closed distance and launched a coordinated assault that targeted the Krolex ship's weapon systems and engines. Morrison's tactical expertise, honed by years of training for humanity's worst-case scenarios, found weak points in the alien design that its builders had never considered. "Their armor is designed to stop energy weapons," Morrison reported as he fired concentrated bursts at structural joints. but they've never faced kinetic penetrators. I'm punching right through their hull plating. The Krolek ship, damaged and confused by tactics it had never encountered, tried to withdraw. Rodriguez pursued ruthlessly, continuing to pour fire into the retreating vessel until it exploded in a brilliant flash of white light. The silence that followed was broken by Ambassador Thylan's voice over the communication system. "Captain Rodriguez," he said, his crystalline form blazing with an intensity that Dr. Chen later learned indicated extreme shock. "You destroyed them. In 3 minutes, you accomplished what our greatest fleets could not do in months of fighting." Rodriguez felt no satisfaction in the victory. The tactical display showed dozens more Krolek ships approaching, drawn by the distress signal of their destroyed scout, but she also detected something else, something that made her smile with genuine warmth for the first time since receiving the Federation's distress call. "Dr. Chen," she said, "are you detecting what I'm detecting?" The xenobiologist checked his sensors and grinned. "Aye, Captain. Human energy signatures, approaching fast." Admiral Sarah Kim's task force dropped out of hyperspace with the precision that marked the human military at its best. 12 heavy cruisers and 4 destroyers, each one bristling with weapons designed for the kind of total warfare that the peaceful Federation could never have imagined. Rodriguez had sent her message to Earth immediately after receiving the Federation distress call, and the Admiralty had responded with overwhelming force. "Captain Rodriguez," Admiral Kim's voice came over the communication channel. "We received your report. The President sends her compliments and authorization to use any force necessary to protect Federation civilians." The battle that followed was less a fight than a demonstration. The Krolek's fleet, expecting to face helpless refugees and perhaps a few lightly armed Federation ships, instead encountered a human task force prepared for total war. Every ship in Admiral Kim's fleet had been designed and built by a species that understood that the universe was a dangerous place, and that survival often meant being more dangerous than anything else you might encounter. The human ships moved with a coordination that the Kroleks couldn't match, supporting each other with overlapping fields of fire and tactical maneuvers that had been perfected through centuries of warfare. When the Kroleks tried their standard intimidation tactics, the humans responded with focused barrages that crippled entire enemy squadrons. But it was the human boarding actions that truly shocked the Federation observers. When Krolek ships were disabled but not destroyed, human Marines in powered armor stormed aboard to capture intelligence and prisoners. The idea of deliberately entering an enemy vessel to fight hand-to-hand was so alien to Federation thinking that Ambassador Thylan initially thought he was witnessing some form of elaborate suicide ritual. Engineer Tom Walsh, working alongside Federation technicians to upgrade their defensive systems, tried to explain human tactical doctrine to his confused alien colleagues. "You have to understand," he said to a group of Floranus engineers whose petals kept shifting to colors indicating bewilderment. "Humans evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill us. Plants, animals, diseases, weather, geological events. We learned to survive by becoming more dangerous than our environment." The battle ended with the complete destruction or capture of the Krolek's fleet. Not a single human ship was lost, though several suffered damage that would have been catastrophic to Federation vessels, as the last Krolek ship exploded under concentrated human fire. Admiral Kim opened a channel to the assembled Federation refugees. "Beings of the Celestial Federation," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent her adult life defending others. "I am Admiral Sarah Kim, of the United Earth Defense Force. Your distress call has been answered. The Krolek's threat to your people ends here. Ambassador Thylan's response would be recorded in Federation archives for millennia to come. Admiral Kim, he said, his crystalline form pulsing with colors that Dr. Chen's translator couldn't adequately interpret, we called across the galaxy for aid, hoping to find allies who might help us in our darkest hour. Instead, we found gods of war who treat our greatest enemies as minor obstacles. The aftermath of the battle revealed the full scope of what had occurred. The Federation had reached out to what they assumed would be fellow peaceful species, beings who might offer assistance or refuge. Instead, they had made contact with humanity, a species forged by a world so harsh that it had produced the galaxy's apex predators. As Admiral Kim's fleet escorted the Federation refugees back to their core worlds, the implications of first contact began to sink in. The peaceful civilizations of the Federation had spent millennia building a society based on cooperation and mutual aid. Now they found themselves under the protection of beings who had learned to survive by becoming the most dangerous predators their world had ever produced. The galaxy would never be the same. The Federation had called for aid, and the Deathworlders had answered. The age of peaceful expansion was over, and the age of human protection had begun. In the months that followed, as word spread throughout Federation space about the beings who had ended the Krolek's threat in a single battle, a new reality began to emerge. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy not as explorers or diplomats, but as the response to a desperate call for help. The peaceful species of the Federation had learned that sometimes, when facing extinction, the only salvation comes from those who are more dangerous than your enemies. They had called across the void for aid, never imagining that their salvation would come from a species that had learned to weaponize everything, including their own willingness to sacrifice themselves for others. The Deathworlders had arrived, and the galaxy would never forget what happened when apex predators decided that someone was worth protecting.